Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access the meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hand or otherwise signaling their intent to speak. This meeting will be recorded. Please take care to mute your microphone unless and until you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members. Please respond with present if you are on the call. I'm looking at the screen and trying to pick what I do here. Ron Boise. Stephen Conti.
Present.
Saravan Krishna.
Present.
Khwaja Hassan.
Present.
And then we'll go through some where I think we're not going to get as positive an answer. Matthew Vronka. Arnold Cohen. Sudeep Maiti. I'm sorry, Sudeep. I don't think you're here. Jacqueline Crow. Purvi Avlani. All of those right now are a no. I am Ted Barker Hook. I am present. And staff, Aniri Patel.
Present.
Great. With that, I think we can move and hopefully Matthew will join us and maybe some others. Oh, there's Matthew. Welcome.
Hi, sorry, it kept disconnecting as soon as I put in a passcode.
That's okay. Matthew, we just took roll call. We are about to talk about the minutes. Hopefully everyone got a chance to look over and review the minutes. I noticed that I am no longer TBH. I am now a full Ted Barker Hook in the minutes. Thank you for that, Aniri. Does anyone see any amendments or changes to the minutes that they'd like to make? Pausing a moment.
I don't have anything.
Great. Could I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of Monday, November 24th, 2025?
Motion to approve.
Second.
In a second, which brings us to our first and probably only roll call vote. No, the second will be to close the meeting of the night. Matthew Vronka.
Yes.
Ron Foisey.
Yes.
Stephen Conti.
Yes.
Saravan Krishna.
Yes.
Khwaja Hassan.
Yes.
And Ted Barker Hook is also a yes. That's a unanimous approval of those minutes. Fantastic. Let's move that bit of paper out of the way. All right. According to our agenda, what we'd like to do first is continue our discussion on ADU lot dimension proposal for changing our bylaws on top of the changes that came in February. I don't remember if there was any specific homework that any of us were going to do, but without going line by line, I really appreciate, Aniri, the memo you put together for us all. I wonder if you could give us some highlights to that memo, both for the benefit of committee members and also any public who may be watching.
Sure. So basically, memo summarize what Hopkinton used to issue under accessory dwelling units. So we used to approve by special permit under 800 square feet or 800 square feet ADU. After state adopted and from February 2025, ADU is allowed by right. So as per the state rules and regulation, you can do 900 square feet ADU or 50%, like whatever the size of your ADU, so half of your principal unit basically, and you can do attached, detached, above, in the basement kind of ADU, but you need to have individual access to that ADU, and it's not restricted to short-term rentals or like, but you cannot do Airbnb if I'm not wrong. But yeah, it don't need to be like owner occupied ADU or the main property. And the bylaw town of Hopkinton adopted in our last town meeting is allowed 900 square feet or 50% of the principal structure gross floor area. You can do smaller than whatever is smaller, and if you want a larger ADU, you need to apply for variance and special variance because you are if you want to do bigger one, whatever is allowed more than that, then you need a variance applications. So I compare a few towns surrounding Hopkinton, what they used to do like for ADU, what is their current ADU bylaw. So you can see Hopkinton, Ashland, Uptown. I remember we discussed in our last meeting to see how many ADU we issued. So I found one Excel sheet, our building department keeping record. So from 1993 to 2024, we only received somewhere around 70 to 75 applications for a special permit before February 2025. Some of them were through variance for a bigger ADU, some through special permit, which town issued over. Since we adopted this bylaw from February and town accepted in town meeting, we only received 3 building permit application. We received few calls inquiring about ADU, what kind of ADU they can do. Sometimes because of not enough space or septic related issues, they back out. They never reach out to town again. But as of now, there was only one application which got approved by building department. One is under review, and we might get a couple of more. But in this 8-9 months, we only received 3 applications of the ADU.
Great.
So you can see the tables. Some of the town do allow bigger ADUs by special permit. Some do by right, but rest of the towns are following state rules and regulation at the moment.
Great, thank you. I have a couple questions, and then I'll on the memo. For the applications that the town has gotten since February, are those applications that I guess we can't know for sure? Are those applications that you suspect would not have come through without the state changes, or do you have any sense of whether the state changes grease the skids for those applications?
So for the one we received, yes, for 24 Pleasant Street, which building department approved it in September or somewhere around that time. That was, if I'm not wrong, detached ADU above the garage, something like that. And the other one we just received in November, so it's still under review.
Okay. And I also see that you say since 1993, there were 70 ADUs approved, which, and I'll remind everybody, I'm a history teacher, not a math teacher, but I think that is 30 years, 70. So that's like 2 1/3 per year. Is that math right? I'm seeing some nods in the room. And then we've already gotten 2 within the last couple months. Okay. Another thing I was wondering, Aneri, is if our committee wanted to explore offering to planning board looking into allowing larger ADUs by special permit, we would have to write the wording for that, or do we have to have wording that says this is allowed by special permit? Or can anyone ask anything that is outside? Can they go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and say, I don't see anything that says I can't ask for permission to build a 1,500 square foot ADU?
So as of now, like there's no specific wording, but just like I think recently we do have one case where they want to do bigger ADUs, like 1,000 square feet ADU, which approved by zoning boards. So it's not mentioned in our zoning bylaw, but if you want, you need to go through variance process and you apply to zoning board of appeal. Board will review, will listen. If they think it's approvable, they will issue the decision. But wording wise, we don't have anything specific. So if committee decide to add that, we can add one point, like do modification on our current approved ADU bylaw, or we can wait for few more months and then see how many applications and everything we are getting. I recently received a couple of questions and calls regarding ADU. One of them wanted to do ADU, but they don't have enough lot to do it.
Okay.
So,
If we wanted to make it, and there's a lot of ifs, I want the committee to
Mhm.
hear my ifs. I'm just looking for information. I'm not pushing for anything. If we wanted to make it easier than obtain a variance, if we had language that said you can ask for a special permit up to, say, 1,200 square feet, would that make it easier for that applicant versus getting a variance through ZBA?
yes, so always special permit is easier than variance application. So, but
That wording would have to be in the bylaws. That you
yes,
may ask for a special permit up to this amount.
yes, that is correct. You need to mention that in the bylaw. Currently, it's written under that way that whatever like bigger ADUs coming, they need a variance because it's not mentioned anywhere in the zoning
Okay.
bylaw. And like it also depends upon property size and all the other
Sure,
criteria I mentioned.
Right.
But yes, so
Um,
but again, if they don't have enough setbacks, then it will again go with for a variance. Then it will not be a special permit, even
Understood.
for bigger ADU.
Understood.
So
Okay. What I'd like to do, I think the last time we brought this up in a meeting, I gave a whole lot of my thoughts and my research, and I would like to go in the opposite direction. Although I will say I'm happy that my research seems to agree with Aniri's research for all the towns that we both looked into. So I'm happy I didn't screw that up. So I'm interested in the ZAC members. Do you have further thoughts coming out of last week's or 2 weeks ago's meeting and 2 weeks of thinking through the issues? Just speak up, please, Matthew. We'll try to make it a little bit easier. Try not to talk over each other, but
Sure. Before I respond to that prompt, though, I just wanted to go back to the amount of permits that were issued. So it's just over 2, right? Over 30 years. And we've had 2 basically for 2025, right? So it sounds like there hasn't been a significant change to date. The one other note that I was looking at through our bylaws, back on the prompt, is that there is a bylaw for conversion of units to rental, I think, which has a minimum of 600 square feet allowed, and then there's also a maximum of 1,800 square feet for duplexes per unit. So I thought those numbers might also help when we think about the sizes of what units come into play here, when we think about maybe the maximum size of a ADU, as well as like the minimum, what the town looks at as the minimum viable living unit in other contexts. So I was just going to throw that out for anybody else has any comment.
and those numbers again are if you are converting. I remember discussing this one in ZAC some years ago. If you are converting some of your current home, not adding on,
Correct.
you have to have at least 600 square feet to convert to a second dwelling, and up to, what was it, 1,800?
Yeah, so it's to 600 square feet if you're going to rent out part of your dwelling as a unit, and then 1,800 was the maximum for each unit size in a duplex.
Okay.
Which I had asked some questions about duplexes versus building an ADU and where the differences were last time. So I looked that up just for context.
Can you enlighten us? Because I hadn't thought about that until you brought it up just now. So
I just asked in the context that we were hypothesizing about whether it made more sense to have build a duplex rather than ADU if you wanted additional size. And there's some concerns about the tax structure that would impose, et cetera, and why somebody might want an ADU versus moving to building a duplex setup. And so there are a lot of restrictions on building a duplex. That seems like it might actually be a lot more complicated now. If you can meet the if you can fit inside the ADUs, but it does allow for a maximum of 1,800 square feet per unit, so it'd be a larger size than our 900 is right now.
yeah. But a duplex, those regulations aren't about adding on to a building, right? They're about
Correct.
subdividing an existing building.
Or presumably building a new building into two different units.
All right.
And there's also limits on how many duplexes we allow in town, which also takes into account the number of ADUs. So it's interesting that it's already commingled.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts that came to them since last week?
Yes, Ted.
Yeah, go ahead, Arnold.
So
Some study 5 out of 6 amateur food critics love.
Oh,
sorry. If you're going to put a provision in that they can have a bigger one with a special permit, I'm on the Board of Appeals. I'm the Board of Appeals member, but I not sure what the zoning law says. But it seems to me there has to be some kind of criteria, and I don't, without checking on it, whether there's other contexts where you can get a special permit, whether if there's some specific language in the special permit bylaw that you could just refer to that and say the same thing for the special permit for these structures. There should be some reference to the provision that's already in the bylaw, but I think that's something that you'd have to check and have to consider whether there's any other criteria that we'd want to have for a special permit. Just can't say, hey, you can just get a special permit. There has to be some criteria for giving the special permit, not be totally up to complete discretion.
I think that would certainly be true. And I don't think we're trying to nail down necessarily criteria now. I don't even know if we want to move in the direction of a special permit versus by right. But some of that criteria would already be built in with setbacks and septic system being able to handle it and things like that. Those criteria would stay in place, I imagine, if we did move in that direction.
Oh, well, there's criteria for getting a special permit that it's, I just didn't look at the zoning bylaws, and the special permit provisions, but it's not more detrimental. It's more than, what you're talking about is setbacks and things like that is not, isn't like criteria for giving a special permit. Those are just zoning requirements. And the zoning bylaws, I'm a lawyer. I remember having a case dealing with a special permit, and you have to look at the zoning bylaw, which I didn't do before this meeting. But it's either we, and if we're going to make a recommendation, or the planning board would have to include something in there. It may be that there's a section in the zoning bylaw about granting special permits, and it might be that all you had to do is, if we were to approve this, recommend this type of a provision allowing for special permit, if it's already in the zoning bylaw, then it can just refer to the zoning bylaw. But it's something that either us or the planning board or the town meeting would have to consider.
Sure, I agree. If we moved in that direction, we would have to be careful about wording and we'd look at what other towns have done. After all, we see from Aneri's table that some towns allow larger by special permit. We can see what kind of language they put into theirs and what we like. But I don't want to put that cart before this horse. At least not yet. Maybe I'll put the cart before the horse later. Ron?
Yeah, just, I really like the idea at the last meeting of subordination of the ADU to the primary unit. And, you know, I would feel comfortable with a 75% rather than a 50%, which would accommodate a lot of things. I still would like us as a town to look at that 900 foot or what some percentage. I think Hopkinton has enough space in it to allow 1,000 or 1,200 square foot unit, which is, you know, what the chamber is recommending we take a look at. But the proportionality, I think, is critical to the whole thing, along with any changes to this ADU law really has to address short-term rentals as part of the new bylaw. So
I
those
agree.
two things combined.
And even if we do nothing with the 950, and I'm not saying we're not doing nothing, if we do nothing, I still think we ought to talk about short-term rentals and work that into what we're doing. But you're right. I keep mentioning the square footage, but there is also that percent of the other house that we can talk about as well, and should talk about. I don't ever like putting my students in a classroom on the spot, and I don't want to do that to committee members. But for those who haven't spoken, do you have any thoughts that came to you over the last 2 weeks?
Ted, to the chair, you know, my main concern a couple of weeks ago, it was not directed to, for example, Ron, and what I believe was a virtuous example of an individual that's, you know, invested in the town, for example, and you know, spent a, you know, great portion of his life here, and then, you know, wants to continue to live in a way, you know, in a healthy environment and so forth, you know, as we get older. So I think that's you know, an excellent use of the ADU law. As I said 2 weeks ago, my concern is almost a contradiction that I see. Like, you know, I'm looking at the state website, and it's, you know, questions there and so forth, and it talks about, you know, that the ADU is there to, you know, provide affordable housing, but yet at the same time, you know, we talk about, well, it can be used for, you know, a rental unit or a a vacation rental for, you know, people that come into the town and so forth, you know, to basically make income. So, you know, there's a juxtaposition of two different things, you know, and so that's what I'm struggling with a bit. I like the idea of this conversation and making sure that we stick with the, you know, basic permitting requirements. I was concerned about the parking. And, you know, there's the minimum of the one parking spot, but, you know, can that, you know, how far can that go? You know, what's the restriction there? I like the idea of making sure that the, you know, septic systems and where we have septic systems is maintained, and so forth. So those are my biggest issues, is, you know, the position of the affordable housing, or the example that Ron gave, which I think is great. But then at the other hand, you know, we could have, you know, just an income unit, you know, and so I haven't sorted that out in my head. And by right, you know, you can do any one of these things. The final thing I was going to mention is I was listening to the, special town meeting, we got that, tax issue back in order, the additional taxes and so forth. I just want to get this out. I've been here for 30 years. I was a big proponent of schools, obviously, with 3 kids, born and raised here. But we're spending a ton of money in taxes, for new schools and so forth. And, they're talking 90 million in borrowing now, 30 million more next year. I'm not sure we have a plan for growth in the town. The master plan hasn't been updated for quite a while, to my knowledge. So my question is, where are we going, in terms of total population, stress and strain on the school system, things of that nature, bother me too, because there's not an infinite amount of money. We can't have, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of borrowing to support a bunch of new children in the town and so forth, that just put even further stress on our great schools, And, I was part of that, with the kids growing up in the 90s into the 2000s, we built a lot of schools and we're building more schools. So my question is, where do we put some constraint on this outside of the great example that Ron gave, So that's what's been going through my mind.
So let me just, I want to try to condense that last part. I think what I'm hearing you say, Steve, is you have concern, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I do want to understand. You have concern that if we find ways to make ADUs even more inviting than they are, that it could mean an increase in school age population and further strain our schools.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're alone with that concern. I think, quite honestly, that if the state did not force us to change ADU laws, there's no way, if these proposals were put at town meeting, my bet is our town would not have supported these changes, which is why I think the state forced them, because I don't think many towns would have supported them. So I hear what you're saying, and I think there's a lot in town who would agree. I don't have any numbers in front of me, but I have had a few conversations with John Gelsich, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting what he was trying to say. But I think he cited for me some studies that indicate allowing multifamily housing, more apartments, garden apartments, et cetera, and ADUs would fit, does not put anywhere near the strain on schools that I and you and a lot of people in town assume that they would right away. My understanding of what John was offering me was that that is an overstated worry. Now, convincing people of that at town meeting is a chore if we decided that that was something we needed to do. But anyway, I just want to say I hear what you're saying and I understand, and I think you're not alone.
Yeah, and I know we can't change the state law and the by right aspect of it, but again, sorry for keep bringing you up, Ron, but I think that's a perfect virtuous reason to have it. Especially somebody in town that's invested their lives here, and they want to continue to live here. So I think that's a great example of why we should be able to do it. Especially if, families are getting together in the primary home and, you have the ADU and, you see that going on, myself growing up, that used to happen one way or the other, they just call it ADUs now. So if somehow we can parse this, whatever we put into the revision, even though we can't change the state law, that's my only comment for right now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sravan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually glad Steve mentioned that the impact on schools issue, because I had the same concern, but I was quiet because I haven't been attending these meetings for a couple of weeks now, or a couple of meetings now. At 900 square feet, it might not be as much of a concern, but if you go to 1800 square feet, right, would that be a concern at that time, right? And do we have any data showing the impact on schools if we have larger ADUs?
Yeah, I think the answer is no. We don't have data specifically on ADUs in schools. I'm now going through all these papers in front of me. Does anybody remember in the ADU regulations, was there a minimum of 2 bedrooms or something like that? Or was it a 1 bedroom? I see a very firm no from you, Ron. I feel like I read that, but it must have been a different sort of something I was looking at. Or maybe when I looked at other town regulations, I saw some of those things.
It's not in the Affordable Homes Act.
Okay. Okay. All right. Where do we go from here? I have a thought where we go from here, but
Ted, can I make one more comment about taxes and revenue and things like
Sure.
that?
Please do.
I think we have to be very, very cautious about flooding the town with more school children. On the other hand, I think that might be the last war that we could have fought more effectively before Legacy Farms came in here and the whole thing blew up. And there is some concern around some real estate people in Hopkinton that the forecasted school age population is not necessarily going to be growing at the rate that it should, and we may end up with empty schoolrooms, whereas ADUs would at least get some more seats, kids in the seats in the school system. I don't know how to. I mean, the numbers of projecting school kids into the school system have been so faulty over the last couple of decades. I don't know what to believe from whom, but I don't think that adding a couple of more attainable housing units in town is going to drastically change the school age population. And every additional one that we bring in is going to replace some of that additional new real estate tax revenue into town that Legacy Farm, was bringing in $1.5 million to $3 million a year of net new property tax revenue. That's all gone now. But, bringing ADU in is an opportunity for us to get some additional property tax revenue as we go along. Now, the question is, as Steve and Sravana brought up, are we going to be forcing increase in property taxes because we have to build additional school systems, whatever?
Actually, the way it's projected on the current path, we are looking at more property taxes for residential properties, right? Just going with the current path over the next few years, the property tax would have to increase for residential properties, right? So that's why the town is trying to figure out how can we diversify our revenue streams, right? How can we increase our tax revenue and all that good stuff. But even with the current path, it's going up. And to your point, I don't know the impact of ADUs on schools per se, but does ADU bring in that much additional revenue, right? If you look at Legacy Farms, if you take out the multifamily dwellings, the others, the median price is probably like somewhere close to $1 million, right? So that's property from a property tax perspective, right? That's about 18,000 or something. I might be getting my numbers wrong. 16,000, 18,000, something like that, right? Does an ADU bring in something like that?
Yeah, and I don't want to get. I think all of that is worth thinking about. I don't know that I want to get involved in doing the math of potential tax revenue and what the potential per student cost may change. I think it's worth us thinking about, certainly, but I don't want to go too far down that road. And it looks like Shravan agrees with me.
Yes.
All right. So I am so torn on this issue, as I mentioned last meeting. I very much, here's what I know. I was happy that in 1999, 8, I was able with my new wife to buy a home in Hopkinton and I had no kids. And there's no way I could do that today. Even now, after almost 30 years at my school, I could not afford to buy into Hopkinton. And I would love for there to be opportunities for, in my case, young teachers to be able to come to our town. And right now, if we stay where we are now, that's not happening. The homes that are being built will never allow young teachers or police officers or, I don't know, managers of family-run bookstores or who knows what to move into our town. And I would love to find ways to have more affordable / attainable houses. And when we've had ADU discussions with Zach in the past, that hadn't really been part of my thinking. My thinking was, how might it change neighborhoods? How might neighbors feel about lots being divided and subdivided, even if they're not technically on the property map divided? And so I'm really for myself, in a tough spot with wanting to achieve multiple things, wanting to make the town more attainable, either for new families or for empty nesters who want to stay in town. I really, really want that to happen. I also think that the state wants that to happen too. And that's why we have these new laws, so that we can find more affordable housing. My inclination right now is a little bit, it was captured in a Neary's memo. And I like the line, although I didn't like it because now I fear it looks like I'm just stealing. Point number 8 in a Neary's memo reads, the town is still early in the implementation phase of the newly adopted ADU bylaw. It may be advisable to gather more data on ADU applications and homeowner experiences before making substantial modifications. However, Zach may begin identifying potential areas of refinement for future consideration. That's kind of where I am. I hear you, Matthew, saying, so since we've had this new law since February, although I don't know if it kicked in immediately in February, maybe it was March or April or whenever, that we've had 2/3 applications. That's right in keeping with what we had for roughly 30 years. And maybe the new law has done nothing. Maybe people don't know enough about the new law to know that there is more flexibility and freedom and ability to put in ADUs, and it takes a while for that news to get out. My own inclination, and this has been true for my years on Zach, is changing stuff to by right sometimes scares me. Once we make a something by right, it's hard to fix it when people start jumping in doing things that we didn't necessarily consider. I absolutely, my own opinion, to try to push us to next steps, can see places where we could talk about by special permit trying to tweak some things. But changing things by right, especially this early in the new law, gives me hesitation. So without going into any more specifics, that's kind of where I'm sitting right now with this discussion. And I'm wondering if people are in the same place, in a different place. I guess I'm straddling the middle, saying I'm open to some tweaks through the special permitting process, which is easier than variance, but I'm not really embracing changing the by right numbers. That's where I sit at this point. What are your thoughts? Because I'm certainly not trying to speak for anybody except myself.
Ted, do we have any idea what the planning board thought is on just that topic? Should we let it ride for another year? Or
we happen to have a planning board member with us. I wonder if these discussions have been happening, Matthew.
We have not discussed it at the planning board. It was brought up here first.
Okay.
I would expect that it would also tend to be a conservative view of the leave it as the status quo for the time being and see what happens. But I wouldn't want to say that definitely without having it discussed there.
I'm going to change one word if you'll accept it, a cautious view. And Sravan, you keep giving us the thumbs up emoji. I guess that means that you're kind of thinking where I am thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense to me. Although I would, again, I don't know what the scope of the opportunity is, but if we allow short-term rentals, right, would that somehow um, increase the revenue stream for the town without increasing the burden on the expenditure on the other side, right? Is something that's going in my head. I don't know what the if that will make any difference or move the needle for the town, but that's something that I would like to see.
I'd love to put a pin in that term short-term rental, but let me just see if anyone else has thoughts who hasn't spoken up on a cautious approach versus don't move anything versus change some by right stuff. Seeing none. When I hear short-term rental, Sravan, and maybe it's just because my landowner vocabulary is limited, I immediately jump to Airbnb, short-term rental. I think that you're talking more about maybe a 3-month rental, someone who has a short-term employment opportunity.
Right, something like someone is moving from out of state and needs to stay somewhere for a few months before they figure out what to do, things of that nature. But I'm also not averse to Airbnb if that creates an additional revenue stream from some sort of tax that the town can collect from Airbnb rentals or something like that. And again, I don't know the details of how that all works. But something that increases the tax revenue is all okay for me.
Yeah, I don't know how that works either. I think generally there is real worry about more Airbnb opportunities. We've had some, and some were brought up at town meeting even, I think, some neighbors having really, really bad experience with Airbnb neighboring properties. I am thinking that if we introduce Airbnb Vrbo stuff, it would be to limit or eliminate that opportunity for ADUs, but I have no idea what the tax benefit or loss to the town would be if there was Airbnbs allowed in these things. I have absolutely no idea. Okay, it's 7:45. So can we have this informal discussion? I didn't hear any voices, although I suspect, Ron, you would like there to be a little bit more by right. But I think that we already know that, so I'm not going to, unless you want to speak, I'm not going to tell you not to speak either. But I think we already know that's your hope, is to expand some of the by right. But I'm not hearing other voices that are moving in that direction. So let me just pause one more time to see if anyone would like to argue. No. Okay. So what I think I'd like to do, if the committee is up for it, is field some initial proposals for what might be special permit allowed that we could then wrestle with, that maybe Amiri can play some games with and see what might happen. What we already have some, Amiri gave us the research on what some other towns are doing. I ran through some. Let me just see if there's any that are worth noting from my research that's not a part of Amiri's. No, I don't have any other notes. So according to Amiri's research, in Upton, you can go up to 1,200 square feet by special permit. Their town still limits it to 50% of gross floor area. And I saw Newton was one, up to 1,500 square feet for detached structures via special permit. Lexington is interesting. It says up to 40% of the house's floor area. I thought the state law says it can be up to 50.
I think that's, sorry to interrupt. I think for Lexington, it's from their old bylaw. I can double check.
Okay, so that
But
may be,
that's the only information I found.
yeah, in Southborough, actually, now that I look, max size is 25%, but I don't think that that's true anymore with the new state reg.
I mean, yeah, for noon, yes.
Okay. All right. So let's have this discussion. If we were to move towards proposing to planning board some adjustments, again, let's put Airbnb aside for now. Some adjustments to floor area, and as a proportion of the main house. What are some ideas that feel cautiously acceptable? Because I think that's where the majority of the committee is feeling like we might explore.
Yeah, I'd just throw out, 1,200 square feet and 75% by special permit.
Okay. Or 75%. Discussion on that.
Ted, I was just going to mention, I was when you were talking about Lexington, and I was going through the various towns around us. All the various towns around us had, at least through August, had like one ADU request or permit or whatever. I was looking at Lexington, and is Lexington the one you said increased to 1,500 or?
I think it was Newton, wasn't it?
No, but you mentioned Lexington.
Lexington, no. Lexington, it says up to 40 square feet, which I think has got to be wrong.
40%.
40% or?
Yeah, 40% of the primary house. Upton is up to 1,200 square feet by special permit.
Yeah, the reason why I mentioned Lexington and going back to the square footage and what we want to move it to, of all the towns around this area in Middlesex County, there was like 5 ADU applications through August. Had the highest amount, and yet they had the lowest percent. One of the lowest percentages of. I'm looking on the state side. That's kind of interesting to me.
I wonder though if that's a function of the sheer size of Newton. I would imagine that the population of Newton is significantly bigger than every other town on this particular.
Yeah. I was specifically I'm looking at Lexington right now. It was
Lexington, not Newton.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I just found that interesting. But going back to the square footage, otherwise, I think, if you have a larger amount of square foot requirement, you got to have a larger lot, right?
Yep.
To accommodate. You only can go so high. So there's still a restriction there, and then going back to this whole concept, I think it's a minimal impact. I mean, all these towns I'm looking at, this is for this year. It's just 1 or 2 for the whole year, just like what we have right now. I was making more of a statement about just looking at where we're going as a whole. This is like an example of something coming up. And as long as it's not abused, then we can get some language in there. And you laid it out very nicely. I thought I'm okay. With adding some more square feet. One way or the other, particularly
through a special permitting process.
Through a special permitting, yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I thought you laid that out kind of nicely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matthew, please.
Yeah, so this might just go back to Neri needs to look this up again, but I'm wondering if the interpretation for Lexington is that it's 900 square feet by right, but an unbounded 40% of the overall house size.
Oh, maybe.
Is what the special permit is for.
I will take a look. I'm just reading right now again if I mispronounce or mix something, but yeah.
And then I misspoke when I was thinking about Newton, but Newton does, according to Aneri's research, allow up to 1,500 square feet for a detached structure. So the 2 towns on our list that allow bigger by special permit are Upton and Newton, but maybe Lexington allows bigger if that 40% means if you have a 4,000 square foot house, then you can go 1,600 square feet, maybe, if that math is right. Sravan?
Hi, and are we still sticking to whichever is less? Then we go
We can discuss anything, but the way most towns do it is whichever is less. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It sounds like you were hoping that that was true.
Yeah, I was hoping that was
Okay.
1200%, 1200 or 75%, right?
Right. Whichever is
1200
less.
yeah, 1200 is the cap, so to
Okay.
speak, right?
Okay. Is there anyone who thinks that 1,275 is too big, even by special permit?
I think we would want other criteria
Uh-huh.
that might be more subjective in the special permit
Yeah.
criteria based on the intents of the ADU law.
And I think that gets to some of what Arnold was saying much earlier. And we could look at some of that language, but I'm not proposing any language, but I know that for other things, it's things like not a detriment to the neighborhood, not a detriment to the neighbors, or something like that. And we could find some of that kind of language if we want to. Any other thoughts? Okay, here then is what I propose. Do we have a next meeting scheduled in Erie right now? We do not.
No,
Okay.
we need to decide when you all can
Okay, so
meet.
I think, as was true 2 weeks ago, our biggest pressing issue is MBTA. So let's see how the MBTA communities discussion goes, which I'm about to move us toward, unless anyone thinks that I'm missing something. But maybe I will, or Aniri will, or together we will try to work up a draft document that will have a special permit using these numbers, 1,200 and 75%. And we can look around and see other kind of wording that might help the planning board make those decisions. Does that sound okay to the committee? And then we can make that an agenda item for our next meeting, whenever it is. If that next meeting is after Christmas, I think that we have a better chance of I have a better chance of putting good thought into that draft. But if we need to meet, if we need to meet again before Christmas because of MBTA, maybe that's our only agenda item for that meeting. Okay, does that sound like a working plan going forward, everybody?
Yes.
Great. I'm liking the timing of this meeting. It's 5 to 8, and I think it's time to move into agenda item number 3, our MBTA communities revision. And Aniri, before most people got on, I said, Aniri, could you walk us through the slide presentation? There was some wording in Aniri's email that confused me a little bit, but I think Aniri can clear everything up if you were
Yep.
similarly confused.
Let me try to share my screen. I hope it works this time.
Seems to be, here it comes.
Okay. You all can see my
There
screen?
it is, yes.
Okay, perfect. So after our last discussion, I did a little bit research what other options zoning board and town and planning board looked for a MBTA in the past. So this one is one of the options board looked in the past. This is Upper Cedar Street and downtown. And this proposal basically do have the same downtown area. And here the preserve one, which if we consider this proposal is meeting all the conditions. And when I discussed with the John, he mentioned that when he sent out email to state and they were pretty okay with this proposal. But I think during town meeting, if I'm not wrong, by 8 votes, we were not able to select this option. So
You're
here's
bringing back bad memories, Aniri. I was there.
yeah, so just this morning I asked him that why we did not select this proposal, because Here, if you can take a look at Upper Cedar Street, this area is almost 39.7 acre, and the downtown is 16.9 acres, something around that area. And state was okay to consider this as a contiguous area, like 15%, 50%. So we met the requirement, but I think during the annual town meeting, residents were not in a favor of the proposal, so we did not choose this one. Here are the statistics of the proposal. For option A,
Yep.
if you can see, we met all the requirements. Then option B is our current MBTA proposal, which we adopted. But state found that we are not meeting that 50% contiguous requirement. So as of now, in the current proposal, we have 3 districts: Preserver, Downtown, and Walcott Valley. And here is their distribution. So as of now, we have 54.6 acres area. So based upon that, we have to have like somewhere around 27 acre as a contiguous area, which we do not have. So the other option I came, which is this one, that we can remove the parcels which we design as a MBTA zoning and add here and make this as a one district to meet our requirement. So if you can see in the green, these are the downtown area parcels, somewhere around 9 to 10 parcels. If we remove MBTA zoning from that and add here between downtown and the current Walcott Valley, it's again 10 parcels, same acres, and the total coming up as a 54.6 acres. And this way we meet the requirements, all 4 requirements, basically speaking. Yeah, this is one of the idea. I try to find other options, but if we go with the totally new parcels, we need to do all the process again. We need to reach out to residents, and you all know the steps, public meetings, and everything. So these are the 2 options. I discussed with John this morning. He said we can revisit our first option if committee decide, and then we go again in front of planning board and see, because he mentioned that during the town meeting, the preserver residents were not in a favor of. But I just found that in our current MBTA bylaw, we still have that zoning. We
Indeed.
still have that. Here it is. So we still keep this in our proposal. So I don't see that it will create a problem again. Now coming to this option number C, when I was looking here, let me zoom in. So these few parcels are already in the business, downtown business district. So this all tiny, tiny ones, and this one. So this parcel is, yes. So we have one owner for this parcel. So the parcel next to our town office, and this, let me try to, basically this one and this parcel. Oh God. That's owned by one owner, and just this morning they reach out to us asking that is their parcel comes under MBTA zoning, because they are or they might be planning to do multifamily over there. So at that time this thought came up that why don't we just add this parcel and create a one big district. That way we meet the requirement. And if I do the total, it will be around, yep, 3172 acres. we make as a one district. So
And the total acres, it looks like what you're saying there with the purple, but not the hash marks, is roughly the same size as
Yeah.
the green outline.
yes, so we going to remove the green outline parcels and add here, basically.
And then, right, so our total acreage wouldn't change very much at all.
Yes, pretty
Very
much it's gonna
clearly,
be.
we would have a parcel well over 50%
Mhm.
of our total zoned in town.
Yep.
Okay. And just so that I fully understand again, and maybe for the benefit of others, that I don't know the name of the road, but I think it was just in front of the planning board for a different development, I think. That little road that shoots to the east with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties on the north of it, all of that's already zoned downtown business.
Here, yes, this
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This let me.
What street is that?
Claflin, one of the
Claflin.
many Claflins.
So this is already zoned as a business district.
Okay.
This big parcel and this two are residential A
Okay.
zoning district. So
All right. And for the benefit, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but for the benefit of everyone here, the downtown business district zoning is more permissive of dense housing than the MBTA communities requires. So anytime we talk about moving something into an MBTA community that is already downtown business, we're actually not inviting dense housing any more than is already being invited. And I see Matthew is nodding. Yes, I have that correct. So could you zoom in on that map, please, again, Aniri?
No.
Just give us a little zoom. I think that's our most helpful image right now. So if that were true, the big question with this proposal, besides will the town vote for it, that's obviously a big question, but is really those parcels between Walcott Valley and the Claflin Street parcels. So when I drove through that neighborhood earlier today and then looked at the town zoning map, that largest parcel there was of interest to me. Because I don't know what's there tree-wise. I don't know what's there wetlands-wise. One of the things, I don't imagine we have many wetlands concerns in this neighborhood because it's so developed already. But we do have to think about what is truly developable, in quotes, so that wetlands don't get in the way. Because if it was judged that we are only zoning wetlands areas, the state doesn't accept that. But I don't think that's an issue. One of our goals for both rounds of this on the zoning advisory committee, and then my sense was it was a goal of the planning board as well, was we were looking to not find properties that would virtually immediately be bought up by developers and converted. That was a concern of ours. And that largest lot there, when I looked at the town map that has the little pictures of houses on it, seemed largely undeveloped. So my worry is, if we were to expand the map that way, including especially, could you, Aniri, just circle or outline the parcel I'm talking about?
Yep.
Hopefully you're following me. Hopefully everyone is.
You're talking about this one.
I'm talking about, yeah, that big, large one. Could you give that a little circle or an outline?
Didn't we just merge a few of those?
I don't know. Maybe you can, that sounds like it's planning board stuff. So what do you know, Matthew? Because that's the piece that is giving me hesitation on this plan.
I believe the one that's right on Walcott, the two that are joining it on Walcott also got merged in with it. And Ari probably knows better what we just approved.
Yeah, so those are this one. So let me change the color. So that's just right next to our town hall. So this is the parcel. I hope you can see in the red color. And here is that
And that is now one parcel?
Yes,
And
through
that was
A&R
the owner who
process.
you said was asking about.
Yes. And I'm going to find out tomorrow what exactly their proposal is.
And what if I were walking on Main Street, what building is that on the Main Street side?
So just next to our town building, you see the parking lot and that pizza, Bowman
Okay.
Pizza. So
Is that
that's the
Bill's Pizza?
parcel. Yeah.
That's the Bill's Pizza parcel.
I think like next to it, where our parking is currently.
Oh, so there's no building on that parcel. It's a parking parcel?
Yeah. Yes. And I
Okay.
think Bowman is on that parcel if I'm not wrong, but
Okay.
there is a two structure. So I think the pizza place is on the parcel.
Oh, okay.
And there's, I think, bank next to it. So that's on a separate parcel. But this is the one, the Walker, 10 Walker Street and 14 Main Street, 0
Okay.
Main Street, which
Bowman is closer to Main Street though. So
yeah, so
don't you think it will be around here where the W is written for the town of Hopkinton?
no, it's let me see.
Where the W is I believe the church on the north side of Main Street.
Then Bowman will be like O. or
Where the
something.
TO is I believe the Masons Lodge.
Hold on, let me zoom in.
The colored area fronting Main Street is where you're saying Bowman is.
No, now the scribbles don't
Now
work.
it's yep. So here is the Bowman. So this is the town building. This lot we merge.
Okay.
So let me circle.
Can you erase the old orange and
Yeah.
red scribble
Yep.
just to eliminate that confusion?
Mhm. Let me do it in a grid. So this is the parcel which planning board approved as a A&R, and now it's one lot.
And then I think just to the left of that is Town Hall.
Yes, here it's a town hall.
Okay. All right. Matthew, on the bigger piece I was talking about, were you thinking that there was some property merged?
No, I was confused. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I pulled up the wrong graph. Yep.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
So Aniri, if you could again do an orange, the parcel that was concerning me in this proposal, if you could just fill that in an orange again.
Let me do in yellow.
Because you did do the one that I was thinking of, but apparently I
Yep.
wasn't very clear in describing it.
Here's the one, right? If I'm not
Right. So obviously that one is key to having our contiguous unit, but that one also is the one that gave me the most hesitation as far as being inviting to development. All right, with that, I do see your hand, Sarah, and I promise you we will come to you to hear your thoughts, but let me hear a little more from the committee. Sravan?
I have a question. So is Town Hall part of the MBTA community as per this map?
Yes. The one that has been approved that is in existence right now includes Town Hall.
And one more question, sorry. When we say that this is the MBTA community, so can a builder just take one piece of it and start developing without the other pieces falling in place?
Well, they can't take anything. They can look to buy something if somebody wants to sell it. And then, of course, there's all the other setback regulations that are built within the bylaw.
Okay, so it's independent builders developing, components of this shaded area. Is that right?
Yes. What the overlay allows is within that zone, and I'd have to go back for all of the language, but within that zone, if a developer was able to get ownership of property, they could by right develop multifamily denser housing as per the MBTA communities bylaw. They do have to meet, I keep going to setbacks, but there are other requirements, setbacks, parking, height of the buildings requirement, all these things still have to be met. But they don't have to go in front of any board at all to build multifamily housing within that zone. And again, within the downtown business zone, the MBTA requirements are actually stricter than our current downtown business zone. So in reality, all of the downtown business zone that we have also put in MBTA really changes nothing, does not make it any more inviting to developers in that area.
Yeah. So when you express this concern that, which I also share, that this large lot might be inviting to a developer, right, to start building. So would that mean that MBTA bylaws or whatever is, if it's not more welcoming than what we already have, then why wouldn't somebody have already?
Because that's not currently in our downtown business zone.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
That is the property that abuts those properties on Claflin Street that are downtown business.
Got it. Thank you.
At least that's my understanding of the map. And I think Aniri is giving me a nod, yes, that I'm reading that correctly.
Yep.
By the way, just for context as well, just to make sure people know what we're seeing on the map, the area in green, which is currently part of our MBTA community, that is the CVS and Marty's Liquors and Hiller's, and I believe the fire station is included in there, the barber shop's included in there. That's what those buildings are. And Aniri's proposal to eliminate that section is not because those are not necessarily good to include, but it has to do with the math about 50% of a zone. If we simply add property to our zone, we're also adding to our total, and that means it gets harder to hit that 50% for one zone.
But this zone would be well over 50% because we'd be joining the two zones.
It would be, yes. If we kept the green in, we're just cutting that. Well, actually, it would still be huge. So we could keep the green in and we'd still meet requirements, or we could eliminate it if we didn't want as much acreage as part of the MBTA zone.
So just to add on that, Chair, yeah, if we want, we can keep the green, but it will, again, if we do a bigger parcel, then you have to follow more than 27 acres as a contiguous area. But if we are combining the whole thing as one district, then it will solve problem that way too. But we need a big parcel or big district, which is around 27 acres.
Right.
So this is the one option which committee can consider and we can move forward.
Yeah.
And the other one is option A. The main reason for me to stick with these two options are like it will be a less hurdle and trouble for the town. That's the only purpose. We can come up with a new district or new options, but I think these two are more good options, I would say.
To give for those, and I think we reviewed this last time, a month ago, the original proposal included, I've forgotten the name of the restaurant. It's not Camella's.
Carbone.
Right. Included Carbone's and a couple of other properties. And while we heard at that town meeting a large outcry from the folks in the preserve, and Aniri's right, in our current accepted, the preserve was voted in, there was a significant voice saying that their main concern was Carbone's, not the preserve. The discussion at the time, that was 2 Mays ago, was some of us didn't think it was developable, the Carbone's property, because there was no water flowing to it. Others in town who honestly have a pretty good history of being on the planning board and know some things said that is easily overcome by an eager developer. And they made a case that that is much more developable than Zach and the planning board at the time thought it could be. That may still be up to discussion if people want to have that discussion. My own feeling is that got shot down at town meeting. That also didn't pass muster when it was presented to the planning board for a second time. The planning board didn't like it. My own inclination is to move away from option A, which is to go back to the first plan And I'll say again, I thought it was a good plan, but not enough people agreed with me. And I think that my advice is let's not go in that direction again, because I don't think it's going to work out well. But I'm just one voice again, just like I was before. Sarah, you've been very patient. If you could give us your name and address, please, and then we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. So I'm Sarah Brophy. I live at 9 Claflin Street, so I'm at the very last of that purple area.
Could I interrupt you just to ask Aniri to go back to that map for us? So
Sure.
we can see that section again.
Yep.
Okay, while she's doing that, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, so I'm at 9 Claflin, and at the very end of that, that new purple property that you've got highlighted there. I will say that that I abut the large property that you're talking about and being open or being concerned about being overdeveloped. And I can say that, yeah, it's completely, treed, and there's no development back there. There's the house that you see up on Walcott, up front, and then the rest of it is all wooded in the back. So I would also be very concerned about the potential of that area being, overdeveloped, quite quickly. And I also wanted to pick up on the fact of what you mentioned about Carbones, and that also being, having a loud outcry. There's a lot of us neighbors here that live on Claflin that have gone through a lot of conversations about overdevelopment, especially of the new parcel that was all combined together, and wanting to convert that into a parking lot for the last handful of town meetings that have come through. Lots of things in that space too. So there's really a concern about that specific area being overdeveloped. We've just had two pieces, and Matthew is aware of this. We just had a lot on 3 Claflin that's now being converted and getting multifamily built in there. So it's becoming denser and denser, especially with more traffic. So I'm highly concerned about seeing this as potentially being part of that MBTA community when we're already very dense in a very tight, narrow area.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I don't know how to proceed. Other committee members. So Sarah, thank you for telling me a little more about that lot. And it sounds like my concerns you agree with, that it seems really, really inviting.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Something that we have tried to avoid in going through this for the last year and a half. Other committee members, what do you think of the proposal you see in front of you?
Ted, can I just ask, what is the deadline for getting this approved?
So, go ahead, Aniri, you'll have a better answer than I.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So if we want to go in upcoming town meeting, we have to provide an article or at least a draft to select board by end of the January, so 1st February. And before that, we need to check with planning board, public meetings, if it's required, if we decide to go with totally different options, then yeah. And if I'm not able to come up with anything, then I can request state to give us a few more months.
I think, if I may, it's kind of a complicated answer a little bit, and I think Aniri hit on some of the complication, which is, at what point do we have to get something to the planning board so that they can discuss and vote on it to make sure it gets to the select board to get on the town warrant? I think from the state, we have until, and I'm not seeing it, but I seem to remember July, August, maybe even October, but
No.
no,
We
that's
had
wrong.
a year from the letter in May.
So we have until May 29th.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So
I was looking at the letter trying to find that date and I couldn't find it.
So, Chair, I'm just gonna add on that. So yeah, we have time till May, I think 26. So you can consider May, end of the May 2026. So we have to request extension a month or 2 ahead if we don't make it the spring town meeting.
Right, and that would also mean then we'd have to ask for a special town meeting if we can't get it in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to support this option C as Aniri presented it, just from the standpoint of the concerns that you and Sarah raised are valid concerns. On the other hand, complying with the MBTA thing is something that I would like the town to do. And I think it's worthy of throwing this into the planning board's lap and let them take a look at it, because going back to the drawing boards and coming up with something different that doesn't include this, it meets all the other things, it's going to take us a lot of time.
Yep, I agree with it will take a lot of time. I agree with that.
What's the reason? What's the
Go ahead,
reason for not
Matthew.
go? What's the reason for not going up Walcott on the western side of the street?
That was the question I was going to raise, but you did it for me.
Sorry, you mean like here?
So- no, so if we left in the green zone, I'll call it,
Mhm.
and we went up the west side of Walcott, so starting from the downtown district, can you put your cursor and walk up the west side until we hit the purple?
Here?
Nope, that's
Yeah.
way too far north.
Oh.
It's like seven properties going north on Walcott. I'm
You got
looking
the
for
letter
your cursor.
streets. I think
Here?
Nope, lower.
Okay. Come on. I need to.
Starting at A Street.
Here?
Yeah, but just along Walcott, those right where your cursor is. Draw a line. Nope, to the right even a little bit.
Okay, let me.
It's okay. We'll get it sorted out. I wish that I could do the pointing for you.
You mean to
So-
say here?
Directly across the street from your shaded purple.
Okay.
There, those houses there. Not even that whole block. Just the houses along Walcott.
Yeah, so going up to either 33 Walcott or maybe even what is it?
Just the first row
11
on
might
the
work. I
Right.
think you need to go a couple more higher, but yeah, basically
Right.
that block.
Like maybe the house on the other side of B Street.
Yeah.
You mean this side?
Nope. So, okay, do me a favor, Aniri.
Yeah.
Put your cursor between the purple and the yellow that you just drew, right there. Whoop.
Oh, here?
Okay, so that's Walcott. Only the houses along Walcott. Up. Yep. There.
Okay.
Stop there. Nope, don't even go that far.
Here?
Maybe even one lower.
Okay, here.
Right there. And draw a line straight down along that street.
Okay, just.
That. Now, is that what you were saying, Matthew?
Yeah.
So that was the other thing I was thinking, because not even that whole box, just those properties along the street.
But we need to make sure that it's adjacent to either one of the district, downtown or.
But if we just did along Walcott, not even that whole square, isn't that uniting it into one district?
It
I
will
think-
make the hatched position contiguous if you just have this block.
That's what I'm saying.
We are gerrymandering.
Take
Exactly.
that yellow box. you
Gerrymandering.
drew.
That's what I learned
It
in
is
grammar
gerrymandering.
school in this state.
Take that yellow box you just drew, Aniri, and look only at the line on the right-hand side. There. Can you
Here.
make that bigger and darker? Just that line.
Okay. Like this?
That. If
Yeah.
we zoned those, we now have one big zone. But
And
we
you
also have a whole bunch of different property owners, all of whom would have to agree to sell to a developer for those properties to be developed. But that would create, I think, one zone, and then we don't have to worry about Claflin Street and especially that really enticing property. Would that work? Would that satisfy the state is my question.
I can take a look into their lot sizes and again zoning and what is existing on the side.
Okay. And if need be, we can keep the green zone. If that helps, great. if we feel like we need to eliminate the green zone, I don't think that the green zone is contentious one way or the other. But if we do that, then my biggest concern, and part of, I'm afraid I've forgotten her name, Sarah's concern, part of Sarah's concern anyway, was that very large wooded lot. What looks scary about shading that is a lot of homeowners who, if they take the same attitude of the folks at the preserve, that being included in this zone is detrimental to them, we've just created a pool of people who might immediately say, I do not want to be zoned into this. But as far as a developer, for any of that to be developable, they would have to get multiple adjacent homeowners to agree to sell their homes to the developer before any of that could be developed, because there is no eminent domain going on. There is no state provision that makes it cheaper to buy properties. It's purely a current owner and a potential developer talking about a sale.
So, Ted, can I address something too?
Yes, please.
So I had a kind of a different perspective, and maybe Matthew or Neri can support or not support what I'm about to say. But if that's a large piece of property, it's not going to be cheap, right?
Wait, which one are we talking about?
This is the one across from the yellow.
Okay, the one largest piece there.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So picture you're a developer. It's basically there's just trees on it, and it's a large piece of property. It's not going to be cheap. And to make it work, they got to pay for all the utility infrastructure that has to go in there. And, I'm questioning, Matthew, you would know better than I, and Neri, you would know potentially that that infrastructure may not even exist right now to support the amount of units that they would need along with the utility costs to even develop it.
I assume that's on all of town facilities. I think that would scale pretty well, but I mean, Neri probably knows better. I think it's running down.
Yeah. You think the utilities are available without significant investment?
Without significant investment, I'd assume so. Yeah, I assume anywhere in the downtown area is reasonably easy to connect to.
But they couldn't just do it on that street that's in yellow right now. They probably have to come to Main Street, right? Or you're saying they can connect right on that street right now where the yellow is and get.
I assume that's. I mean, maybe Sarah could actually answer what they've got there if they've got town water and sewer. But I assume that's accessible to that area.
Yeah, I have town water and sewer.
Yeah.
So I would assume that everyone else does as well.
Yeah.
Including Walcott Valley, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just was thinking the capacity of that infrastructure.
It looks like it's 2.2 acres according to GIS.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's only 2.2 acres. Okay.
Only 2.2.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the properties there are relatively small, but I mean, still, it's a unique solid 2 acres with one owner. That's not heavily developed.
Okay.
If I can throw my 2 cents in, I would be concerned that I'm sure someone would be willing to take the appetite if we put it out there. It might be far too enticing and from my perspective.
What may I ask, Sarah? What is the it when you say it may be too enticing?
The property itself, the 2.2 acres, to want to take that and develop it, no matter what the cost it would take, knowing that they could get the profit they would make on top of the cost to develop it.
Yeah, that's exactly my concern. I'm feeling supported by you, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask because I didn't realize it was only 2.2. And the utilities already exist for the most part, obviously, where the yellow is. And that gives
Carbonis, by contrast, I think, I was going to say Carbonis, by contrast, I think was about 10 acres and didn't have utilities running to it, like water and septic, water and sewer, I think were the two things that needed to be run there.
Yeah.
But it had already a large pavement So there was less concern about impervious coverage changing, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'm gonna, if you're feeling comfortable, in a moment, gonna ask for your thoughts on the yellow shading. But I'd love to hear from more committee members on what they think of the yellow. And Erie hopefully will look into it and give us some more detail on what that would entail and what the numbers would be at the end of that. But committee members, thoughts on the yellow shading versus the, what did Erie call it, option A, which is the purple shading, including the problematic red one.
If we can make Walcott work as connecting the two parts of that downtown zone, I think that's a win.
The yellow is a win, or either one?
The yellow is a win.
Okay, so you would prefer yellow to purple if it was acceptable to the state?
Correct.
Other committee members?
I
It
agree.
makes sense. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, makes more sense. Fewer people will be affected. That's it.
Yellow makes more sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yellow makes more sense to me too, but it's not fewer people, it doesn't look like, right? Because those property owners would now be opposing it. So, I mean, if it's going back to the town meeting for a vote, we're going to have a problem regardless, right?
oh yes, and I think there's plenty of town fatigue, just period, with this whole thing.
Right.
Simply bringing it back up is gonna
Yeah.
boil some people's blood, no matter what is part of the proposal.
Right.
My take has always been this: if my house were zoned MBTA communities, I would be overjoyed because it means it gives me more freedom to sell to more people. If I were purely interested in my own family's financials. If, however, my neighbor's house were zoned and I was not, I would be alarmed. What threw me for a loop at the town meeting when we first proposed is that people whose homes were zoned felt like they were on the short end of the stick. And I still haven't wrapped my head around that. So as we look at this map, just as a discussion point, it is possible the people in the yellow will be angry. If I were in the yellow, I'd be overjoyed. But those people might be angry. It's also very possible that Sarah, who's across the street, would be unhappy. But we need to find some solution somehow. And our best bet, I think, is trying to find some way to work with the area of town that's on the map now. And I know, Sarah, your house is in that zone. So with all of that preamble, I wonder, Sarah, if you would be willing to share your thoughts on yellow versus purple versus some other solution that helps our town finally get over this hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. And I think partly the is more confusing, I think, than anything else. And I think that's probably why you're hearing from different homeowners about being angry or being upset about this. Is it's a confusing topic in general. So I don't know if I'm angry that I'd be included or I'm angry that I'm not included. I'm being completely transparent with you guys. It's a confusing topic when you think about this whole MBTA overlay. What does it mean? In my mind, I look at the MBTA overlay. I'm like, well, this is probably is pretty far away from MBTA, and if we want to actually have people who can get to MBTA, you're still talking about a 2-mile drive or a 2-mile walk from here to the MBTA station. I think I appreciate the thoughtful nature of this conversation, and I like the fact that we're talking about parcels of property that are less likely to be overdeveloped with that the space in the yellow versus the space in purple. So that is encouraging to me. Again, I don't know if I should be upset that I'm not part of it or if I am part of it, ultimately. I think in general, this whole area is becoming very dense to start with. And so again, that big parcel is a concern for me of that turning over. And then if you had, the fact that you've got the other partner, other properties on Claflin, should any of those sell if I should sell, you've got all that combined and it's going to box my neighbors out.
Yep.
So if I had to say, I'd say yes. I'd be more inclined about the lower probability of the properties in the yellow being developed and being put into that space and being overdeveloped because they are smaller in that sense. Again, if the math works.
And I also, looking at it now, and I don't have in front of me the setback requirements, but all of those are pretty narrow properties. So
Yes.
if we were talking about setbacks to fit on that long, thin strip, let's say someone bought all of those houses, I still think it would be difficult to put multifamily housing of any size within that strip. But I could be wrong, and maybe Aneri can help us with that if she works up some numbers on that proposal.
Yes and no, because on Claflin, if you look at Claflin, the second parcel in on Claflin, it was just approved to be multifamily. So now we'll have 3 homes on that second property in on Claflin.
And that's about as deep as the ones we have in yellow. So maybe you're right.
Correct.
Yeah. Just you gave me an opening, Sarah. I've been wrestling with this, and then Matthew on the planning board has been wrestling. Ron has been wrestling with this for a year and a half. The original proposal, part of what we liked about it is how much of it was close to the MBTA station. We are an MBTA communities adjacent community, which means we're not required to have stuff within a half mile. When we put together the downtown section, one of the things we had heard, and I think has come true, is now the MWRTA, Metro West Rapid, the MWRTA buses do run to the Southborough station and beyond. So you don't have to drive to get to the MBTA station. You can take the bus, which was part of our thinking with the downtown area as well. That, no, it's not close to the train, but we are now, those residents would have the option of taking mass transit, not having a car and being able to get to the train. I don't know how often those buses run. I grew up outside of New York City and the trains went by every 12 minutes. So none of it is the way that I remember commuter trains working. Sarah, thank you very much for that. Thank you for being honest with us. It's helpful to us. And I certainly don't think you speak for all your neighbors, but it's helpful to me to hear your thoughts.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Oh, you're welcome. So here's, well, does anyone else have thoughts on asking Aneri to put together some numbers on the yellow to see what that would do and whether we keep the green zone or not? Did anyone come up with a whole different plan that would get us out of this jam? Does anyone think we ought to go back to the original plan and include Carbonis? Okay, so it looks like what we're wrestling with, and this again, Sarah, may or may not make you happy, what we're wrestling with is trying to figure out how to combine those two zones to get over 50%. And given our time frame, I am proposing, let's see, right, today is the 8th, a week is the 15th. The 22nd's awfully close to Christmas, but I know I'm not going anywhere. Can we do a meeting in 2 weeks, or is that likely to fail?
Chair, I might not able to join myself.
You might not be able to join. What about, I'm trying to count calendar days. That would be the 22nd, 21st, 20th. Is Wednesday the 17th? Is that a real date on the calendar? Is Wednesday the 17th? And if so, is that available for a meeting? If we, and again, I only want to put MBTA on the agenda. We can try to make it short and focused, and we'll move ADUs to the next meeting after Christmas/New Year's.
Yeah. To the chair, if we're going to meet again, I feel like I don't have enough information to propose, another option. I don't know. Did we exhaust? I wasn't involved. I was just getting involved or coming on board when Carbone was being looked at and all that. Aneri, is there, you know, a broader swath of, you know, that was examined, you know, during that time of Carbone? Were there other areas that were considered that you could share with us?
I might be able to answer that a little bit. So after our initial proposal, so as we went into the initial proposal, we considered a lot of other areas. We considered, I keep forgetting what the new name is, but the area over by the Spoon, all of those apartments over there. We considered turning some South Street into residential. We considered the Sportsman's Club. And ultimately, we landed at the proposal that Aneri presented to us as our initial. That lost primarily, in my estimation, by those 8 votes because of a loud voice from the folks in the preserve and that additional voice that said, I'm fine with the preserve, but Carbones is very, very developable. So when we reproposed to the planning board, I think we gave them, Matthew, 3 proposals to chew on. And even that, I wasn't comfortable. I felt like it was our job to whittle it down more, but that's what we ended up with. The one that we currently have was actually not one of our proposals. It was put together by the planning board in discussions. Okay. We proposed the original again. We proposed a version that was kind of close to what we have now. But we also looked at, and now I'm forgetting the name of it, but the condos that are over by Elmwood School.
Indian Brook.
Indian Brook. Yeah, I remember that.
So we considered Indian Brook, and that was one of our proposals.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the planning board pulled the preserve back in addition to a downtown proposal in Walcott. There was talk about some other land in one or both of those discussions across from Hopkinton State Park and the lake. The one thing I was looking at earlier tonight before we started, because I misunderstood Aneri's titles, where she called Plan C, I think preserve was in the title. So there are 3 properties directly south of the preserve that are current individual homeowners. And I did some quick math on the acreage of those properties, and I don't think including those to the preserve solves our problems. And Aneri is shaking her head no, that she looked at those as well. So I think that those are what we've tried to do, Steve. And I'm at wit's end to try to find anything else out besides the direction that we are heading right now.
So in summary, if we were to reconsider Carbone, just so I understand, because it seems like a low impact. I mean, it might be desirable, but it's in the spirit of the law as it was generated. It's right, you know, almost walking distance to the trains and all that. Do you have to include, to make the formula work, do we have to include the preserve and Carbones?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't eliminate one for the other and solve this problem.
Right. Okay. I mean, to me, it sounds worthwhile still to throw it in the mix. I don't know.
We can discuss it a little more next meeting. I don't mind that. If our only agenda item is MBTA,
yeah, we
don't have to think that we're focusing in on yellow versus purple downtown.
Yeah, that's where I was heading with this. That if everybody's or most of us are in agreement, that's what I was thinking.
Sravan, your hand popped up again, and then I see you, Ron, too.
No, I honestly think that would be a larger hill to climb.
Which is that?
Including Carbones again and going back. I think our path of least resistance might just be adding those 7 properties and making them contiguous.
Yep, 7-ish. I don't know if that's an exact number.
Right. If Aneri looks at that and says, okay, this might work within the framework, that might be our path of least risk.
My one worry, and I have no idea if it's a state concern, is it really one property if it's joined by such a thin little stretch of land? They might say that's not real, but I don't know. Hopefully Aneri can help us with that. Ron, your hand went up a little bit ago.
Yeah, I would like to avoid any proposals that include Carbones because it gives anti-development people in town a cause celeb to be opposed to anything that we're putting up there.
I agree with you. I don't think I have the ammunition to fight those who say it is developable. I have no idea, but it's a fight I don't want to have anyway. We've tried twice, and I think that means it's time to stop. But Ron and I don't speak for the committee. We're just two individual voices. Yeah, Matthew.
So yeah, I mean, there's a third voice when it got shot down in annual town meeting, which was just, we don't want to pass anything for MBTA, or we need to come up with more plans. But
that's true too.
Whether it passes town committee or not, I don't think it passes the planning board, because it's a lot of the same people that just refused to accept Carboni's last time.
Yeah,
so I don't see that being.
I agree. Okay, so go ahead, please, Aneri, what's up?
Sorry to interrupt, but my only reason adding option A was because it was the perfect option among what I reviewed and what Hopkinton worked on the past. One of the main reasons was it's next to MBTA. I understand like residents were thinking that it will develop right away. I don't think so that will happen, that somebody going to come and build multifamily zoning there. The other reason was adding that option A in today's presentation was we are also talking about adding new housing and other housing opportunities in the Hopkinton. So multifamily can also help if we are thinking about adding or changing ADU sizes. That's my personal thought.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons. And also, like when we first eventually sent this proposal to state, they were okay with that or in a favor of that proposal.
Yeah,
that was the reason.
In fact, I for the town meeting where that proposal got shot down, I believe I mentioned out loud that an organization working with the state held that map up as a model of what towns should be looking to do because it was in the spirit. It also didn't invite immediate development, but the town didn't agree. So I do appreciate, though, Aneri, that you also like that model because I think the zoning advisory committee at the time felt really good about where we landed at the end of that one, but it didn't work out for us. So, all right. Aneri, if you look at the town calendar, does it look like Wednesday the 17th? If I counted calendar days in my head accurately, does that work as far as your calendar and the town calendar?
Let me
do we
just
have enough time to announce that meeting?
Yes, we have enough time. We have Board of Appeal that night, so I don't think the member who attends the zoning Board of Appeal will be able to join us. I'm sure Ron needs to attend zoning board, so on 17, I don't think so.
Well, I think Arnold is our ZBA.
Yeah, so then we're not gonna have enough people to join us.
If everyone else in this room besides Arnold can make it on the 17th, then we do have enough, right? And who knows, we might get some other folks who we haven't seen at all yet. So, Arnold, I don't want to put you on the spot with double booking you, but all the other ZAC members, can you commit as best as possible? We don't know about illness or family surprises. That Wednesday the 17th works.
Works for me.
Okay. So what I'd love to do, Aneri, is schedule our next ZAC meeting for Wednesday the 17th. If you could, and you have so much stuff that you have to do, but if you could get materials a couple days out early so that we have a chance to give them a look before then, then hopefully we can have a productive but not necessarily terribly long meeting.
Yep, no, I will try. It's just last week we had a vacation.
No, that's fine. There was
short
nothing,
week.
I don't want you to feel defensive at all. There was nothing intended there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Ted, is the plan to come up with the final proposals to send to planning board out of that meeting?
I would say if we can get real close to maybe a vote, that would be great. But I don't know if we have to do that.
Okay. And for Aneri, for planning board, we just need to get it on the warrant in early January, right? And we can finalize the text of that throughout. How long do we have to finalize that?
We have time till end of the January, and then once we just send a request. We can still edit, update
Okay.
till March, I think.
And I think the planning board can always put a placeholder and remove it.
Right.
If the
Yeah.
zoning advisory committee doesn't get it done in time enough for a planning board to consider it.
Yep.
Yeah, I know ideally we'd want town count. Well, this is a lot simpler than the last one, hopefully. So,
Yeah,
but,
hopefully. Fingers crossed.
And if once we come up with the options, I can still reach out to state for their opinion on that proposal side by side. Well, planning board reviews that if we
Right.
want that.
If there's any way to get any feedback on the yellow strip of houses before next meeting, that would be really helpful. Because again, my only concern is they're going to say that's a thread and that's not a real one area.
It works for the congressional elections.
It works in Texas. Okay, so I think that we have a plan for 10 days from now. Excellent. And who knows? Again, maybe we'll get a couple other zoning advisory committee members. And Sarah, if you're available, hopefully you'll come back and chat with us some more.
I will try to be here.
Great. I'd love to get a motion and a second to adjourn for the night.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Okay, we got both. Are you good with that, Anuri, or not?
Who moved and who second? I hear two voices.
Let's try it again. Who would like to move?
So moved.
So moved.
Sounds like Ron is making the motion.
Second.
And there's a second from Matthew. All right, let's take the roll call vote on the motion to adjourn. Matthew,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Sravan,
Yes.
Khwaja,
Yes.
and Ted Barker Hook is a yes. We are done at 7 minutes before 9, so we are meeting the Catino rule. Thank you, everybody. I think that we did make some progress on both issues tonight.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks, Ed.